Calm sea never made a skilled sailor, but each night may come to sleep in safe harbors. May the winds of change force you to jump into the wild seas that carry you to paradise, carry you to peace.
We're delighted to open our fall season of Manaw at the Table with the fabulous Joyce, a powerhouse in communications and public affairs with over 2 decades of experience shaping the reputation and reach of some of Boston's most influential leaders and organizations. Dot is the founder of Joyce Consulting, where she works with a diverse range of clients in the corporate and non-profit sectors. She is also the former Chief Communications Officer and Strategic Advisor for the former late Thomas Menino, our Mayor of Boston. Dot played a pivotal role in guiding the City of Boston's communications during moments of both triumph and tragedy, including the creation of the One Fund Boston following the marathon attacks. She is also a proud graduate of Emerson College. Dot, we're thrilled to have you at the table today.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Martina. This is lovely.
No, I'm so looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too.
We're going to take you all the way back. I mean, you've had a stellar career to date.
Wow.
Fox 25.
Knock on wood.
Yes, knock on wood. Fox 25, now we know it better as Boston 25 News, of course, your time with Mayor Menino, and now your own practice at Joyce Consulting. So where did it all start?
Well, it started in Clinton, Massachusetts, where I was born and raised until I moved to Hudson, where my father was a public school teacher. And I was challenged a bit when I moved to a new town, and it gave me the ability to sort of see that there's more beyond the walls of my small town, as having moved as a young person, having to meet new people. Anyway, I went on to Emerson, as you said, and I never left. I fell in love with the city of Boston. I fell in love with the people I was meeting in the city of Boston, its neighborhoods. I worked as a cocktail waitress at the Purple Shamrock and for the Glynn family. And the experiences I had there really were eye-opening in a lot of ways. And I loved it. I just loved everything about it, the hustle and bustle and sort of being in the mix on everything and learning the city from the neighborhoods and the people that were in it. And I don't remember what the question was, but that's where it kind of started.
And it does take a little bit of guts, you know. I know myself, you know, growing up in a small town and village and then coming into the big city.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody that had ever gone to Emerson. It was, and everybody I think assumed I was just going to follow everybody else's footsteps and go out to UMass Amherst or someplace like that. But there was one guidance counselor at my high school that wasn't my guidance counselor. She was other people's, but she wasn't mine. And she just whispered to me one day, "You should look at Emerson." And I said, "I've never heard of Emerson, but I will." And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Good. It was a small enough school in a big enough city that gave me a little bit of the wings I needed to kind of not get lost, but at the same time a challenge to do more.
And sometimes all you need to is that one person, right?
Yeah.
To just kind of nudge you in the right direction.
And Emerson gave me more money than UMass, which I thought was really funny.
Which is probably
my dad was scratching his head on that one too.
Right,
He's like,
right,
"Oh, it's cheaper for you to go to the private school." I don't know.
And all that funding does help with the tuition, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you come to Emerson, you love it, you graduate. Then where did you land after that?
Yeah, at Emerson, I ended up, becoming student body president and a lot of things at Emerson. And with that, I also met this nun my first week at Emerson. Her name was Sister Mary Walsh. And Sister Mary Walsh decided that I was going to be the president of what was called the Newman Club. Oh. I had no idea what the Newman Club was. Well, the Newman Club is the Catholic organization on college campuses in the United States. I had no idea. But as a freshman, having just shown up, she thought that I would be perfect because my last name was Joyce.
Okay. Good Irish name.
Good Irish name. But I ended up working for the Student Life Office. Then I became student body president. And I ended up applying my junior year to go to Georgetown University for a summer program that was actually run by Republicans, which my father also thought was very interesting.
And I'm sure you do now too.
Yeah. But it was at Georgetown, and I had to go to school at Georgetown and then intern somewhere. And I interned for Marty Meehan at the time on Capitol Hill.
Brilliant.
And so that gave me a taste of government, which I hadn't had before because I was a journalism major. And so I came back to Emerson after that summer, and it was 1998. And I said to my professors at Emerson, I don't want to do journalism anymore. I'd like to do government. And they asked me, or they pled with me, Marcia Della Justina was her name, please take an internship in TV just for one semester and just so you have the balance. Fine, I will. So I went to work at Channel 56, which was the old WB, WLBI, Channel 56 next to the Globe building. It's no longer there. And by the time I was 2 months or a month and a half in, I had used all my internship hours and they had to hire me. And I graduated from college a semester early and I started working in television because I was getting paid.
Right.
So I was working in television, working as a cocktail waitress, and my career started. And then about a year later, maybe that next year, I walked with my class, even though I'd already graduated, and Fox 25 at the time was expanding. And they called and offered me a full-time job instead of just the sort of, I guess I was not a freelancer, but I was full-time freelance at 56. And so they offered me a full-time position, and I stayed there for almost 10 years, and we grew. We added a morning show, we added a 5 p.m. show, I moved from the news desk up to the planning editor and segment producer, so anything they really asked me to do, I did, and I tried to, we did a lot of firsts, zip trips. They came to me one day and said, we have this concept that comes out of Miami. A friend of mine, Glenn Jones, was bringing it up, and we had a new morning show, and it was sort of like guerrilla marketing. How do you get people to know about the morning show without advertising? Let's take the show to their town.
Actually, they still do it.
They still do it. It's much different, much better now.
Oh, I like that.
But at the time, there was one TV truck, 2 cameras, and the anchors. And I would put together the zip trip, everything you can see, do, and experience in towns around Massachusetts myself. And it was a lot. But we did it. No one thought it could be done, and we did it. And now it's still going. And I love that it is, except they now moved it into the sales and marketing team instead of the news
production.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're at Fox.
Yeah.
Seem pretty happy. You did reference, you interned in Capitol Hill with Marty Meehan. So was that little, political angel still tapping away on the shoulder?
I guess, because when I was at Fox, I also, beyond zip trips, was booking the guests and doing segment producing for the morning show.
Okay.
And so we were doing things like Tolman and Gray with Warren Tolman and Rob Gray. We were doing the heavy hitters. We were doing interviewing guests. And so my political hat would come on. And actually, Speaker Finneran at the time was generous. I would call his guy Charlie Rasmussen, and he was the first person to say yes, he would do a monthly segment with us. And I credit that to them trusting me and trusting us that we wouldn't, do the gotcha journalism, but really just be interested in the news of the State House. And we did. We did ask the speaker for a very long time until he left office. And so Tom Menino, I think, saw this show and saw what was happening. We had a studio up on Beacon Hill. And it was just a little bit buzz in the morning. People were starting to tune in because it was where you got something different than the local newspapers. And so Tom Menino decided he would do a monthly segment with us. And I got to know him in the green room, and his press guy, Seth Cattell, I had known anyway, but I got to know him a little bit more. And I just started talking about, the day's events, and the mayor would ask me what I thought, and I'd give him my honest opinion.
Yes, as you
I've
do.
never been hard with that.
Yes, as you do, Josh. Yeah.
And next thing you know, Seth was leaving, and he was looking for someone. And I couldn't get him on the show, the mayor. And it was a couple months, maybe a month and a half, and I was starting to say, we haven't seen the mayor in a long time. So I called Seth, who had already left, and I said, Seth, I'm trying to get the mayor on the show, but I can't seem to get him. Oh, they're having a hard time, Dottie. They're having a hard time filling the position. I said, well, shit, I'll do it if you just get him on the show. Kind of half joking, you know.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, there's this young woman, Colleen Horan O'Farrell, who was our floor director, and she always used to come up to me and said, you should work for the mayor. You should work for the mayor. And so I had her in the back of my mind, and I just kind of spit it out saying, I'll do it if just get him on my show. And next thing you know, 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, the mayor's calling me, and I'm like,
stop.
Mayor? And I ended up meeting with half a dozen people like Krispy Kremes across the eastern seaboard here. And yeah, I walked into his office one day after meeting so many people, and I said, you know, I didn't think this was real. I said, but I think I could really do this. And he said, you already got the job, kid. What do you think you're doing here? And I said, oh, we're going to get along swimmingly.
So tell, because I mean, he was a real, nuts and bolts, and I would say, direct and no nonsense.
Oh yeah.
What was it like?
He was.
Yeah.
I don't know if people know this or not, but he was a really funny guy.
Yeah.
Like he had a really great sense of humor, and he was quick, and I don't know. He cared deeply about the city, and you knew that from everything he did. And I was lucky enough that he had me travel with him on a daily basis. So I would sit in the back seat as we went across the city to event to event to event. And if anyone knows or remembers his schedule, it was pretty busy. Yes. And so I just learned a lot, and he allowed me to learn a lot. But I could probably speak forever about the value
yes.
of what he gave me in this. And I think the greatest thing was people, and focusing on how you really think about the actions affecting people. And what that really means when you're working in government or whether you're working in your own business. Like, what are you doing, and how is it going to affect people in the city? And I just think that was the biggest thing I took away from that position, is that everything has an effect, and you just have to make sure that you're working through all that with people and not against people in certain ways.
And he walked those neighborhoods. He cared about the people.
I said this to a reporter the other day that asked me a question, and it was about the current mayor, and I said, she knows the real people, and there's a lot of people who are loud, and there's a lot of people who can generate headlines because they're loud. But then there's the real people, and the real people of our city are smart, and the real people of our city have strong values about where they want their kids to grow up, and what they want their kids to do, and how they want to be able to live their lives. And she knows that, and that's what Tom Menino knew. He knew who the real people in every pocket of the city were, and who the loud people were. He called them phonies, but I try to be kind. But he knew who the real people were, and who were running our shops, and who were running our Main Streets programs, and who were, really the heart and soul of making the city work.
And it is the people, the real people that are the heart and soul.
The
of
parents
this
that go to
city.
PTA, the parents that raise money for their soccer programs and everything else. He knew every single person involved in the city or community affairs, because those are the people that were making it work, and he wanted to make sure he knew them.
Do you think we've lost a bit of that caring about the people in general?
Well, I think just world events, and it does get chaotic.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the mayors can ever forget, because they're accountable to the real people every day. That's why, U.S. Conference of Mayors and other things like that, bringing mayors together, they're bipartisan. They're not really running too much on a partisan basis. Governors, to an extent, too. There was a 60 Minutes piece the other day with a New Mexico governor and the governor of Utah. They probably couldn't be more different in terms of their political leanings, but they were governing to the people they're serving. And I think it does get a little convoluted when you have louder voices at the national level, and we have influences globally that are, funding different agendas here in our own country. So it's a tough time, but I think that people are smarter than people give them credit for, and I think that the American people know that united we stand, and I think that eventually we'll come around out of all of the world and global affairs stronger than what we came into it as.
No, I agree. I think there's a lot more that unites us, right?
Correct.
Than divides us.
Yeah. And how we get there and what it looks like is messy. But I think that at the end of the day, you have to have hope that it's going to right itself.
So my mother always had a phrase, this too shall
pass. That's right.
And so during your time with Mayor Menino, I mean, you did have, great triumphs, but also a horrendous tragedy in the city of Boston, and with the Boston Marathon, and you were instrumental in setting up with the mayor the One Fund. So talk that, I suppose, both personally what that was like for you, and then professionally.
The marathon bombings were tragic and horrific. But there are other times in our city too that were tragic and horrific that we had to manage. Little Stephen Odom, I'll remember that day like it was yesterday, having to go to Stephen Odom's family's house and sit in their living room after he was shot riding his bicycle in his neighborhood. Those events don't prepare you, but unfortunately there's a template or process for when tragedy strikes in the city. You mobilize certain things, you have protocols, you sort of, and that's what happened in the marathon bombings. You don't become cold, but you become removed from the events that are unfolding, and you sort of do your job, which is create calm, lead, get your leaders and principals to lead, and manage the external communications quickly. And so that's what we did. It was chaotic for sure. It was moving fast. We had, weren't sure what was going on, and there were conflicting reports. And I think it was the beginning of what we were seeing now in terms of, social media driving sort of narratives faster than you can keep up with them, which can harm people's lives. So there was a lot to learn from it, but there was a lot of, the city responded the way you would expect Boston to respond. And that was, I think, the proudest moment for Tom Menino, was that his city responded the way that he would have wanted them and prepared them to respond to something of this global nature.
Everyone came together, and and Boston Strong,
that's funny about Boston Strong. It's very interesting how that happened. But, the mayor knew, Newtown had just happened several months before. And if you remember, Mayor Menino was actually in the hospital when the bombings happened. Yes. He had just had surgery. And he had just announced that he wasn't running again. And so he had a couple of big weeks right before this happened. But he knew inherently that if we didn't set up something quickly, independent of the bureaucracy for survivors and victims, there would be nothing for them immediately. And so that's how the One Fund started, from his hospital bed. Him saying, we had visited some of the survivors on the other floors of the hospital where he was staying, the Brigham. We went down and toured the trauma floor, and there was the Norgan brothers and others that were down there. And, he came upstairs and said, these guys just lost their livelihoods. These guys just, they were roofers and whatever. And he's like, we gotta set something up quick. He said, because they're not going to be able to put food on the table if we can't get them money out the door fast. And he said, if we do it the regular way, it's not going to work. And so we actually created new tax law, federal tax law, by creating the One Fund, but we established it within 24 hours of the bombings, which was unheard of. And I think that moment when he said that and we went into action in creating it, without having all of the things in place that you would want for people to be able to donate in a tax-free way, they donated anyway. John Hancock called as soon as the mayor was putting the people together and said, we're in for $1 million.
Wow.
And as soon as John Hancock said, we're in for $1 million, everybody else came in for $1 million. And that allowed the mayor, he appointed Jim Gallagher, the president of it, who was the head of John Hancock at the time, Jack Connors. And Jack was at the hospital with him at one moment, and Mike Sheehan.
Awesome.
And so those three gentlemen sort of were the face and the organization's leadership as we started it. We had no other infrastructure. It was just City Hall and those gentlemen and their respective teams, and we just, checks started pouring into a P.O. box, so much so that the P.O. box had to be emptied several times a day. And, you know, I remember Mitch Weiss and Chris Osgood coming up to the Parkman House and dumping out envelopes from a backpack. And the mayor saying, we got to get this under control. This is a lot of money. Blah, blah, blah. And it was because we'd set it up so quickly and because it was something that people could actually do. That's why we were able to raise so much money so quickly. And the mayor was trusted. Yeah. He was a trusted steward that all of that money was going to go to where it was intended to. Yeah. And that's why I think he would be so proud, is that the city responded the way he expected them to, because they trusted him and because they had something to put their energy towards, which was helping other people. Yeah. Not to mention, I mean, the day of itself, like, we would have had so many more people, we would have lost tragically more people if it wasn't for our first responder community having trained on that course every year for major catastrophe, from tourniquets and other things that, you know, regular citizens and runners themselves and doctors and nurses. I mean, it was an amazing feat to have, I shouldn't say only, but to have lost 3 out of all of the people that could have been.
Because when you think of it, there were so many people in for the race, the Red Sox. I mean, it's always such a great day in the city. But I mean, it does. I mean, you go back to what you said about Mayor Menino. Like, he was trusted and he cared about the people. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was always, he always led with.
And it was always what's next.
Yes,
it wasn't. Yeah. He didn't dwell. Yeah. He didn't dwell in the emotion of it. He was always thinking about what were these folks going to need. And same thing with the business community on Boylston Street. The feds came in and shut down our city, and rightfully so. They had to do their job. But you had businesses all along Boylston that now were shut down, and insurance will take care of some, but they had all kinds of horrible things within the confines of their businesses that needed to be cleaned and sanitized. And our teams at City Hall actually were doing that. Our graffiti removal teams came in and were actually cleanup crews. And so all of the folks that have jobs in the city that do one thing were all of a sudden put into action to do something else. And they did quickly. And we marched through Boylston Street the day it opened, and the mayor went and had lunch down there and said, we are back, please come, please eat, please enjoy these businesses because they need your money. Always to the next. Yes. Always to the next.
Yes. And you referenced about Boston Strong.
Oh,
I'm just curious.
Well, it's funny because we had obviously.
Because I was running, as you know, I ran the marathon, that day. So,
my closest assistant did too. She crossed right before the bombings, and a lot of people, it was unbelievable. Anyway, Boston Strong. Actually, we had named the One Fund for a reason. The mayor's remarks at the hotel that day, I wrote, I think, in the back of the car with him, and it was, we are one city, we are one Boston, we are one community type of thing. We are one united, that sort of sentiment. And so the One Fund was based upon his notion that we are one city. Everybody on Marathon Monday might come here from other places, but we are one.
We are one.
And so the One Fund was the One Fund. And we were trying to do hashtag one fund. It was sort of new. Social media was sort of in its infancy.
Right.
We had used it at the police department for, responses and things of that nature, but it was really new in terms of driving.
Hashtags.
Yeah. And so we were hashtagging one Boston, one Boston, one Boston, one Boston, this whole sense of unity. Then something started popping up. Hashtag Boston Strong, hashtag Boston Strong. And I kept seeing it. And my staff is like, this is gaining momentum over our one Boston.
Oh.
I said, can we find out who it is? And they said, yeah. I said, well, just use it. And they said, what? I said, just adopt it. I said, I don't know who it is, but just adopt it.
Ask for forgiveness later.
And they said, are you sure? I go, yeah, just hashtag one Boston, hashtag Boston Strong. And so we did, and we found out who had created it, and it was two young men at Emerson College.
Oh my God! So it was meant to be.
So two young men at Emerson College, and they started doing T-shirts and all these things, and they raised money and they donated it all to the one fund. And they came up at one point, and the mayor gave them a little citation up at the Parkman House because it really was the sentiment that drove the response. And nobody knows that, Boston Strong wasn't ours. It was these two young men from.
And it's still,
Emerson.
every marathon, weekend, we're all hashtagging
Boston Strong
to this day. Yeah.
It's become a moniker everywhere, I think. I see, Cincinnati Strong, or and it's really, I think it's wonderful. Those young men, kudos to them for being positive and trying to do something. Trying to do something good as young students here in the city and channeling that to something good.
We're going to shift gears in a little bit, but Dot, I'm so glad that you were able to tell the story about the One Fund, because lots of us don't know the origins, and to hear about the envelopes and the checks coming in. So I'm really grateful to you and everything you did.
Mitch Weiss and all of them. It was quite a feat. At one point, the mayor was on the phone with President Obama, and telling President Obama that this hasn't the IRS had enough trouble recently, because it was when the IRS was sort of in trouble for going after Republicans or something. And he said, we need this designation. And next thing you know, we got the designation. You tell all these people I can't have a tax write-off.
Right. Oh, no, well done.
Well done, Tom Menino, and everybody else for finding the path forward on that one.
So we'll shift gears a little bit now, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Dot. Mayor Menino, as you referenced, had announced that he wasn't seeking re-election.
Mm-hmm.
So you leave the mayor's office in 2014,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So then, kind of talk about, Joyce Consulting. How did that all come about? What was your vision?
Well, it's fun. I mean, I think the mayor taught me during that time, or I knew inherently, I don't know, but always what's next. And so I actually called Jim Gallagher at the time, and I said, Jim, it's getting to be November now, and we have this one fund thing, and we now have a new mayor coming in. I said, there's a lot of pieces here that I don't know who we're handing this off to. I said, it might make sense if I was to come somewhere and keep this and help you manage this through. Mayor Menino was still alive, Mayor Walsh was coming in. Right. How do we sort of unify the forces to protect the survivors in the one fund outside of the political environment of whatever it is? And so he said, that's a good idea. And so John Hancock hired me as a consultant, and that was my first client. And I came into John Hancock to manage the first anniversary of the marathon because they were the lead sponsor still at the time. And we knew that there would be some sort of ceremony and making sure that the past administration and the current administration, there was no gaps in between for the survivor families or anybody else. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I was there for quite some time, different iterations of my job after that. We shut down the one fund, which was always the plan.
Yes.
And we got through the first anniversary, distributed the funds again, and then we shut it down. And in the meantime, the mayor's friends, the Kesslers had a challenge. They were doing medical marijuana at the time, and there was some hiccups within the medical marijuana regulatory framework that they got stuck in. And Mayor Menino called me and asked me if I would help them. I said, well, I don't know anything about marijuana. I've never even smoked marijuana. He said, no, this is about, getting them out. They have a call, talk to them. I go, okay. So I went and I talked with them, and I ended up, they were my second client.
But you were still at John Hancock. Right.
Yeah,
okay.
and I said to Jim at John Hancock, I said, I got another client. He goes, okay. He's like, you're a consultant, that's fine. We reworked my contracts, and I took on the second client. And it was great. It was another opportunity where I got to learn something I had never knew anything about before. And Howard and Michelle Kessler and their family are wonderful people who, I think as the mayor got sicker that year, we were doing his book, also getting his book launched, and he had transitioned over to BU. So I was helping Mayor with his transition and getting his book finished and getting his book tour, started. And he got cancer, and he got started to get sicker. And so before he died, I remember Howard coming in and sitting with him, and I think that, it was sort of like take good care of her type of thing, which he did, and we had some, challenges with his little issue, but we got him his netta open in Brookline and Northampton and Franklin, and I think that he was pleased that we were able to do that. But in the meantime, Tom Menino passed, and all those things from there. But yeah, so that was my second client, and then next thing you know, I got that done at his project, and I was working with John Hancock, and then other people just started to call.
And you just said, I'm going to...
Yeah, well, taxes came due, and I was like, geez, I got to actually figure out how to pay taxes. And so a friend of mine works at RBC, and she said, you should call, so-and-so. I was also, trying to figure out my retirement plans and all the things that, I was getting divorced, I was moving, I had a lot of moving pieces.
And you also had a lot of change,
A lot of change in a very short period of time.
Right.
And so the folks at RBC hooked me up, or she recommended a tax consultant, a tax preparer, and he was the best. Big Al, we call him. And Big Al, not only did he do my taxes and help me figure out how to do all that, he got me an EIN number. He got my LLC off the ground.
There you were, so yeah.
And so God love Big Al, because he launched Joyce Consulting. He's like, what do you want to call this thing? I'm like, I don't know. It was literally, I had 2 seconds to say, I guess Joyce Consulting.
I love it.
And so that's how that started. And people always ask me, how come you don't have a website, or how come you don't have...
I think I've asked you that.
Yeah. And I haven't really needed to have one yet. And a lot of the clients I serve, Kesslers and others, I don't know that they'd want me to share that they were, what their issues or challenges was and how we were able to fix it. I think, what's most important is the success of it all, and that they are able to, do their business and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't have a website.
So that's okay.
I still use my personal cell phone as the number to call. And everybody thinks I'm a little nuts, but it's sort of part of my charm.
Right. And, we all get caught up on the websites, but I think sometimes referrals are, there's nothing like a referral.
Yeah, that's right. Who people are, and they know who you are, and it's a little easier. But
so it all happened very fast. EIN number, LLC, and you were off to the races.
Yeah, I was off to the races. I'm like, oh wow, that's it.
Well, there's a little bit more to it, right?
Yeah,
So talk to us then.
Bank account.
Yeah, right. So people come to you like, it's
the sky is falling.
Yeah, the sky is falling. This big crisis, come in, sit in front of you. So, how do you guide them through that? Like, what's your communication style like?
Well, I think I'm probably different with everybody. Like, it depends on the issue, I suppose.
Right.
A lot of times people don't realize that I don't know everything. You gotta, I could be new to whatever industry you're in. So you're telling me the issue that you have in front of you, but I might need to ask you a bunch of sort of questions that you find silly or whatever, because I don't know the industry or the challenges that surrounding why this particular issue might be happening for you. And so a lot of times I think clients will be like, why is she asking me about that? But it's my way of sort of doing a deeper dive into the whole, so I can understand why one particular thing may have happened. Sometimes it's external forces that they don't even realize themselves that are affecting their issue, meaning that there's other things happening in the city or around the city that that are having an influence on their particular issue, and they're unaware that that's what's happening. And so once you figure that out, it makes it a lot clearer and a lot easier to move forward, because they then understand where the landmines could be and how to navigate their process through it.
And I'm sure I would imagine you probably say to clients, don't lead with your emotions, because you can, probably, I know, although, I know emotional intelligence is really good, but then I think it's good having coming to that, and because you're not as emotionally invested. I mean, I know myself owning a business, you're so emotionally invested that sometimes you can probably say something not meaning to say something, if that's
right.
I mean, you're the expert, you tell us.
I would never suggest people's first call to be responsive of the whatever inquiry that's coming in.
Right.
I think their first call should be to professionals in the space. Right. Sometimes we are even people will call attorneys first, and their attorney but we got this thing, and and an attorney gets involved, and we love attorneys. We work with attorneys all the time, but sometimes attorneys can make your public relations issue much worse because of the restrictions on the legal side, where we are able to sort of thread a needle on what can be said and what should be said, because a lot of times you can't talk about personnel issues, you can't talk about certain things, and so how do you respond to press or media in a crisis without getting yourself in more legal hot water? And that's sort of why people will call us a lot of times, is we know we need to respond, we know we want to respond, but our lawyers are saying no, or our lawyers are restricting, and we all get on the phone and figure out, okay, let's think this through. And I never suggest getting on the phone and responding to a reporter directly. It's always good to have someone on your team at least call first and find out what the real story is.
I mean, for those of us that are not in the business like you, we'll hear all, getting out ahead of the story,
And I'm a big believer in it. I'm a big believer in transparency. I think that a lot of times I'll say to clients, if you don't tell me everything, I can't help you. It's not that I'm your lawyer. No. I'll sign an NDA, but if you don't tell me everything, I can't effectively do my job, because someone will find it. It's not.
And they will nowadays. There's no. All the skeletons come out eventually.
They do. And so we do a pretty good job of making sure their clients are forthcoming. But I also believe that reporters have a responsibility to be forthcoming. And I think our generation now that we're living through, journalism is evolving, and it's evolving quickly. And I think this next generation of journalists have a big, big burden on their shoulders to figure out how we maintain a journalistic integrity and a high level of trust among our folks in journalism as this world gets, I don't want to say this, more interested in profits over
the reals.
Over anything else. And I worry about that a lot. Everything is a business, and we need to, have funding to make things work and pay people, and journalists need to be paid because it is a job and profession and critically needed. But, I worry that we're not holding journalism to the esteem that it should be, in making sure that it doesn't fall into the bought and paid for side of the house.
Okay. But I mean, you've social, we've a 24-hour
News cycles.
It's
Yeah, I mean, we're in a capitalist society,
right,
and you have Fox and you have CNN, and they balance each other out.
Right.
But where is the newspapers of record?
I know.
Where are the newspapers of record? And here we have the Globe. We're lucky to still have the Globe. They've got some challenges too.
Yeah.
I mean, being able to afford the level of journalism that they've had in the past, and everything is. Again, it's a business, so you have to support it. I worry about whether or not public funding for journalism is the right way to go, or philanthropic funding of journalism is the right way to go. There seems to be, we're at an inflection point where journalism needs to be valued and protected, and I'm not exactly sure where that's going to come from yet.
We don't have the answers today, and then for our young people, and sometimes I say that they just, read the headline and it's all social media. So, we grew up reading the paper.
Again, loud people can drive a lot of the dialogue, and if you don't really get people who dive in a little bit deeper and go do the work to find out who and what the real story is, then you get a whole bunch of nonsense. Get a whole bunch of nonsense.
For sure. All right, Dot. So we're going to talk about another topic that you're.
Oh, I thought we were going to continue to solve the world's problems today.
We are. Yes, but we're. I think we're doing a good job.
Yeah,
we're doing a good job, and we've good moral compasses.
Yeah.
Another topic that's, I know very close to your heart is, women and leadership and mentorship. And you've been a phenomenal supporter of Manaw since we launched.
Congratulations launching it. It's not easy to launch a new women's organization in this town.
I was told that by many people, including John Chesto at the Globe, that it's that it's not easy to launch a new group, but we have we've a great board and a great
and you've done it.
Great support. Yeah, exactly. A bit like Joyce Consulting. We just said we're doing this, but why is that so important to you? Supporting women, mentorship, supporting women in the Greater Boston area.
Yeah, I think women. People who have traditionally been not represented, I think this town can be tough. And I think the more places that we can find where we have shared values and shared sort of commonality about doing something positive, I'm willing to support, whether it's women or not. But I tend to focus on women because obviously I am one and I know how difficult it can be. But I'm also happy to help young entrepreneurs who are trying to break into a business that find that they can't afford very high-priced consultants in town and might need someone to help them navigate, political waters or whatever. And I'll raise my hand and say, okay, you're from here, you want to do this, let's get it done, and not, charge them astronomical amount of money that they can't afford. So I do that a lot. I try and, make sure that regular folks that are just trying to earn a living or trying to make a go of something positive, that are trying to create something new, I support that. I support it because we need that. We need the energy. We need the creativity. We need the community that's built from all of those things. Women in general, I think, have always been people who do. We've always historically been a little bit behind the scenes. Behind every great man is a great woman. That wasn't said for no reason.
Right.
We do more than our fair share in a lot of ways. But times are changing too, and men are starting to do some of similar things because women are in the workforce more than they ever have been. And so, I think it really is about supporting things that are positive, that are new, that are bringing new energy, elevating people that haven't always been elevated into, you can't have the same people running things all the time. And so you have to start to figure out how you bring up new leaders and new people in the city that want to stay engaged. I think Sandy Edgerly did a great job with opening the Quinn. When she was opening the Quinn, I was helping do the neighborhood stuff with her, and I kept saying over and over again, Tom Menino would say, "Who's the next generation of philanthropist? Who's the next generation of steward for this city?" Because all of our stewards in our philanthropy were getting old, and the arts community and all of our major institutions rely on that stewardship. And so when she was opening the Quinn, I was so pleased when she was curating a membership that would cross over with some nonprofit and other institutional players and the philanthropic community, so they get to know each other in a deeper way. So I think there are a lot of people in this town, women in this town, that are doing great things to try and, keep Boston going as sort of that forward-thinking, I won't use the word progressive, but sort of momentum-building community where it's always what's next and not relying on what we've done.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we have to give people a chance. And I always say, raise, people and raise women. And you talk about the Quinn and Sandy Edgerly, like you can feel it when you walk in the door. It's so diverse. I mean, the membership is so diverse, and she's made it accessible.
Correct. Yeah, the way in which they did the membership structure, I think, was very smart. Very, very smart. So those things, I think that I'll support. Some people will say the Quinn is too expensive. Well, they might be. It might be an exclusive, sure, but where else are you going to be able to foster the type of stewardship and philanthropy that's necessary to keep the city moving forward the way it's always has been, with the cultural diversity it has, and arts and everything else that we've been very, very fortunate to have funded through philanthropy here.
Yeah.
There's things that people can donate to that aren't political.
Right.
And I think that our community has been inundated with political funding, and so people feel, I think, squeezed. But hopefully someday somebody down in Washington will resurrect the Shays Meehan bill, and campaign finance reform will go through, and we can get rid of all these money in politics.
And I suppose, think back to what brought you into the city, what brought me to, it's a multicultural, it's a vibrant,
there's an opportunity
city.
at every corner, and the people that you meet are so interesting and doing so many different things. And man, sometimes my brain goes so crazy just thinking about all the things that you could be doing. So it is the energy in our city is what is the greatest part about our city, and that's the people.
I agree. The people are at the core of it. You help so many and support so many of us. So who was a role model or a great mentor?
I was
for you.
Yeah, no, I was dreading this question.
But
I was dreading this question. I was thinking about what I would say, and I don't know. There's so many women. There's so many women. Angela Menino, my own mother, my great grandmother came to this country with nothing, and they built houses and had a little store. And I think about how they had to do it, and I think about the people I worked with at the Purple Shamrock, and I think about the ladies that I meet when I'm going through the checkout lines at certain places, and what struggles they must be going through to actually have to get up every day and do their thing. Because I know I struggle to get up every day and do my thing.
I mean, we all struggle.
So it's sort of like I find my little inspiration in all kinds of women in all kinds of places. I talk to a ton of people. I know that you probably think that's odd, right? I do. I talk to so many people, and it's.
But isn't that too, Dot? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But isn't that how you learn? You learn about people, and I just feel talking to people is such an education.
Yeah, and I just watch, and there was a lady getting on the elevator with me the other day to go to the parking garage, and she held the door for me, and I'm like, we had a few couple of words, but in that little span of time, you could feel her energy of the same as I was. Thank God it's Thursday. Thank God we're getting off. Thank God we're have a moment that we could be in a friendly environment with somebody who's just going to go to the same floor, and we're going to get in our cars, and life is going to be good.
Yeah.
And that hopefulness, I find humanity, like just people in general, and women in general, when you say something nice or you do something nice, and the response you get, that's the energy. And there are people, sure, Sister Mary Walsh was one of them, and for sure Marcia Della Justina from college, and the folks from my high school, my best friend's mom, Dr. Pat Luoto, when I was a kid going through high school. She was a professor, and I had never known a woman professor before, and she was very kind to me, and there was just so many women throughout my life that I just, at the moment, I needed them, and I thought to myself, wow, I can do that, or I can do something better, I can do something more. And so, I think that you just have to be open to seeing it.
I agree.
And everybody, Jeannie McLaughlin used to sit outside the mayor's office in the little desk, and she had been there for like 3 mayors. And I love Jeannie because Jeannie would tell you the truth. Yeah. You go and talk to Jeannie, she'd tell you the truth, she'd tell you what's going on. I love Jeannie because I knew I'd get a straight story from Jeannie. But she, lived in Charlestown, her kids were around, she had a great life. She had a great life, and she was working every day, and it's people like that you just you get some sort of like energy from. You just feel like there's good people.
There is. Yeah,
there's good people.
So it's you women all through your life, and and present day. And then I always say to people, I think sometimes people are lonely. So saying hello to someone,
totally. Here's a woman who lives alone with a dog. That's probably why I talk to so many people.
No, but I always, when as I live in the city, Dad, and I walk this city, day in, day out, and, somebody says hello, or I always, I'll stop up, because you just don't know what their story is.
Yeah, you don't know what they're going through.
No, you just don't know what they're going through.
A smile is always, it doesn't cost us
anything. It doesn't cost us one thing.
Yeah. And I always feel that way, holding the door for someone, or, it's the reason why One Boston Day, when we created One Boston Day, it was about the inherent goodness of people. And you don't have to do anything, be kind to each other.
Right.
And that's what makes the city, and our city in particular, have this sense of, inherent goodness. And I think that's what we were working towards for the 20 years Tom Menino was mayor, and for the time before that with Rayfield. It was to get back to the place where Boston becomes, and still is, driving change, but not leaving anybody behind.
Right. And we can't forget that.
Yeah, that's right.
Can't forget that. So Dot, wow, we have covered a multitude. And you are one busy lady. So what does Dot Joyce like to do for fun?
To relax. Well, yeah. I enjoy being with friends, and I'm going to London and Sweden this week. I'm going to go see Lady Gaga. I love Lady Gaga.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the ABBA Museum. And so those types of things are fun to me. And I enjoy, being outdoors and walking my dog. And my dog is my life. And the joy I get just from being around the neighborhood and, letting her go swimming and things like that. Like
things we can't take for granted.
You can't take for granted, yeah.
So Dot, this has been absolutely fabulous. Oh my God, you've been,
I don't love talking about myself.
But you've been so authentic and shared so much about the city that we know you are deeply, deeply, deeply passionate about. Yeah. So, what's next for Dot Joyce? And I suppose, what are you excited about?
Yeah. Well, continuing to grow my business, and getting involved in some of the things that are sort of percolating around here. Healthcare and sort of our 4 core, economic drivers: healthcare, higher ed, financial services, and tourism. Those 4 things I pay attention to quite intently all the time, and sort of the morphing of what those are. we'll try and get a little bit more engaged in some of those efforts, especially as the global events and national events continue to play out. Hopefully we're able to add some value somewhere there. I think we're going to try and establish ourselves in a permanent home. Hopefully it's here.
Oh, fabulous.
And so hopefully on the horizon there's a sort of event to cap our permanent home. Those are the things.
Excellent. Well, we're very thankful because we are recording in Dot's office.
Hopefully it'll be a permanent space here.
Yes. And well, Dot, this has been fabulous. Thank you for being so honest and so authentic.
A calm sea never made a skilled sailor, but each night may come to sleep in safe harbors. May the winds of change force you to jump into the wild seas that carry you to paradise, carry you to peace.